Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Happy Moment. My name is Dan. I'm glad to have you with me today. And today I have a very special guest with me. He is known as the Rogue Showman. Please welcome Clark Lewis. Hey, Clark.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you. Uh, Clark is a very multi-talented person. He does performances traveling around. He does juggling. He's a stuntman, sword swallowing. Clark, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this?
Sure. Well, I'm 29 years old, a performer living in Michigan, and I started juggling when I was 12 years old. So it's been about a 17-year journey for me, I guess. I'm not sure if the math is, yeah, I think the math is right there. Don't judge me because I can't do that on the fly, but uh, it's started out with me just as a kid learning to juggle three balls, and I discovered my love of learning tricks and learning skill-based tricks, and it's this kind of random thing that I started doing turned into uh, the fire that consumed my entire life, and it's my career now, and it's accelerating. So it's really crazy to look back and see just like something that was just kind of random when I was a kid, something I picked up, and it turned out to be like one of the defining things of my entire existence. Just random, a random thing that I was like, oh, I'm going to do this instead of doing my homework. See if I can juggle, you know. Oh, it turns out that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life now. It's been wonderful, though. It's really been great.
Now, do you remember the first show that you performed at in front of people?
Yeah, I think the first show that I did was for this kind of summer camp thing. I think I was 17 at the time, if I remember correctly. This was a few years ago now, obviously, but they invited me to come. It was a completely free gig. I had no like business savvy whatsoever. I was just so excited that somebody actually wanted me to come do a show for the first time. That was crazy to me. So I came. I had absolutely no plan. I had no routines. It's complete improvised, probably about 20-minute show, and just showing off whatever skills that I had. And for about 30 or so, I don't remember how many there were. I think there was about 30 kids that were like late elementary to maybe early middle school, and they just loved it. They were so nice to me, and it was such a beautiful moment that confirmed for me that I can do this. This is a this is a thing that people enjoy, that brings people happiness, and sort of now I just need to refine it because I was terrible back then. Like they were so nice to me. It was, the show compared to what I'm doing now as to what I was doing, it's almost a completely different thing. It's almost unrecognizable. Uh, but that was a good moment.
So at that point, were you just doing the juggling or were you
Yes.
okay?
Yes, it was primarily traditional juggling. I had, balls and clubs, and I did something that is called contact juggling as well. But yeah, it was all pretty traditional stuff. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I had a chance recently to watch part of one of Clark's shows, and he had all the energy and the presence of a rock and roll front man. He came out to Judas Priest, and it was a good time. Uh, Clark, uh, talk a little bit about the musical influence that you have.
Yeah, the music is always very important to me, and I think I tend to um watch musicians and rock stars for inspiration a lot more than I watch jugglers. Although I do watch jugglers as well. Um, but the, a lot of the show for me is trying to find a certain vibe, or trying to uh, um, find an energy or an aesthetic, whether that's through music or through visual, as well as just being the trick. Because you can do the trick, and you can do the joke, and you can get the laugh and do what works, and that's important, I think, as a performer. But what I really want is to have the whole atmosphere, the combination of all the elements, kind of making it something more than the sum of its parts. So the music is a huge part of that. I'm obsessive over my music choices. I'm always obsessing over my music. It drives me crazy actually sometimes because I cannot decide what music is right for this particular part.
Who is your all-time favorite band?
I don't really have an all-time favorite band. I think, and it changes for me, and it always changes over the years. I tend to be in the rock and metal area typically, although it's absolutely not a hard and fast rule for me. I actually like a lot of sort of gothic music as well. But again, not no hard and fast rules. Right now, I'm actually quite into gothic metal. So there's a Finnish band called Him that maybe a lot of people are familiar with. It's very romantic kind of um, music, but also has slightly of metal edge to it. Of course, I really like Typo Negative and the bands like that as well. But that's just one small part. I mean, I am all over the place, man.
Hey, awesome. I saw Typo Negative once live. That was a
Oh,
pretty cool
really?
experience. Yeah.
Wow, dude, what a
That was
I am so jealous.
that
I'm
was
so jealous of that. Then
back in I want to say 2007. That was
wow, okay,
that was that was a good time. It was
yeah,
definitely a good
I'm
time.
sure it was a good time. Yeah, man, I would pay a lot of money to have that experience. I tell you what.
Yeah. Very cool. But so do you said you spend a lot of time like trying to pick out the right music for your shows,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have you ever made a choice that you later regretted? Like maybe you picked a song that didn't have the same energy that you didn't want it to have, or
Oh yeah, I certainly have. You try things out, and a lot of times you don't actually know what's going to work live until you actually try it out. I think one of the things that I love about performing live is it has this unpredictable, almost magical uh, sense about it where you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what's going to work. So sometimes in my mind this song is perfect, and then I go up there, oh, it completely sucks, it doesn't work at all. And sometimes there are songs that I think, it's probably not going to work, and it just works perfectly, and I don't really know why. I just kind of try to, rather than analyze it technically, I try to kind of go with what my gut says, or like what feels right. Like, oh, this just strikes a chord with me or something, or this is the right emotion for some reason. And so I'll try to follow that rather than I think this would work because the rhythm is correct and because the energy is this certain or whatever. you know
when I saw you, I think it was you came out to Judas Priest, you got another thing coming, and
yeah.
I thought that was a perfect fit.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I that's a pretty good song to that's a pretty fun song to come out to at the beginning of the show. It's got kind of a positive feel to it, and uh it kind of gets you pumped up, I think.
Now, are most of your shows for kids, or you kind of do like a mixed bag?
Most of my audiences are mixed age groups. A lot of it, or would be called family audiences, which tends to be my favorite. I tend to like family audiences and or adult audiences. Um, the actually performing for just kids is one of the most challenging things for me. I do like it, and I think I'm just kind of learning how to do it, which is kind of ironic because that was the first show, like I mentioned earlier, the first show that I ever did was pretty much exclusively for kids. But now that that I've kind of developed a style and developed material, um, yeah, I just kind of I've kind of found my direction in my style, or I haven't found it. I'm discovering it. I'm on the path of discovering it, and it's leading me in a certain way. And performing for like a birthday party for a bunch of little kids is is a challenge for me much more than performing for drunken adults. If I'm in a beer tent late at night surrounded by drunken middle-aged people, like that is just fine. That I'm perfect. Like that's my comfort zone. You know, if I'm at that's great. You know, if I'm performing at a birthday party with for a bunch of kindergartners, that's a little more difficult for me actually because I don't have the material. I haven't developed the material for that because you know kindergartners laugh at very different things, or you know they find different things to be cool or funny than obviously you know adults.
Do you find that you have to uh adjust your show or tweak things a little bit depending on the audience you're performing in front of?
Some maybe a little bit. I generally keep my material the same. I kind of have my style and I stick with it. But you know, occasionally I'll change some of the songs here or there if I feel like it's appropriate or for the context. But no, I don't really change anything of the material. It's more like how you it's more like in how you relate to the crowd. It's more like a personal thing because you can do the same material in a at least I feel this way. I don't know if it's right, but I feel like you can do the exact same technical material with the same songs and the same everything in but as a person you can deliver it in a completely different way with you know your attitude, your objective, your mindset is um you know the other half of what makes it what it is in my opinion. At least that's what I've found, you know.
Okay. Oh, Clark, I'm curious. How exactly does a person learn to swallow a sword?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? It's actually a very difficult question to answer, and it's one that I get asked a lot for obviously. Um, and well, there's also a little bit of hesitancy there because there's kind of a tradition in sword swallowing that you don't talk about your learning process or you don't talk about how it is done because it's different for every person and it is also quite lethal if you do it wrong or if you get it wrong, I should say. So you know there's a little bit of hesitancy to speak about you know specifically how one might go about doing it, um uh, just for that, and I don't know you know how legitimate any of that concern is, so I'm sorry if that is you know if I'm coming off as pretentious there.
No, not at all.
I certainly don't mean to be, but sword swallowing is also even if you are going to try to describe it technically, it's very difficult because it happens internally, and the you have to be able to relax all of the um, muscles, and you actually have to be able to let your heart slightly move out of the way. And all of this is kind of done by feeling and intention of the mind. In a lot of ways, has a lot. Um, I think the techniques of sword swallowing are related a lot, probably to yoga and meditation. Not that I know a lot about that sort of thing, but um, yeah, it's and it's incredibly uncomfortable when you, especially when you were first starting, and very frightening. And I absolutely was obsessed with it. It was um, when I was learning. So and also you make a lot of horrible noises when you are learning, so you are always seeking privacy and seeking isolation to practice. And at the time in my life when I was learning that skill, like I was actually still living with my mom, and she was not, as any good mother should be, was not approving of that. And so I had to you know uh, God bless my mother for putting up with me as she did, but I was to find some place or time when I could do this without being heard or disturbed, you know. But yeah, it's a skill that is very personal learning experience for everybody, and some people get it a lot faster than others. And I've not met very many other sword swallowers. And I tried to learn not tried to learn. I tried to get the only sword swallower that I knew. When I was learning, I messaged him on Facebook to ask if he would give me some advice because I was learning this, and he was extremely polite, but he just completely avoided the question and he wouldn't answer me. He wouldn't give me any advice. Like, he's super great guy. And I actually got to know him better later on. But yeah, you don't, uh, generally speaking, sword swallowers, they're not going to teach you anything unless they know you really well or they really trust you or something like that.
Would you say that sword swallowing is the most challenging stunt that you perform?
I don't know if it's the most challenging. It's possibly the most stupid. Um, yeah, it was it's not challenging very much to me right now, just because I've been doing it for so long. That it feels, I've been sword swallowing for 7 years, so it actually physically feels pretty normal to me. When you first start, it feels incredibly weird, but the body adapts to things. It's amazing how the body adapts. So um, there are some times when I will develop a block, or it's all about tension. So sometimes I will develop some kind of a block or a knot of tension in in my body, and I'll just not be able to do it for a little while. And that used to really freak me out. But now I just know, I've had that happen enough that I just know, okay, there's a little bit of tension there. I just take a break and maybe not do it for a few days, and it'll be fine. Um, but yeah, it was very frustrating to me when I first started sword swallowing because I was really emotionally attached to the process. And I think I still am to some degree, but maybe more so when I was younger. My sense of self or my identity was wrapped up in what tricks I was able to do, and that was kind of wrapped up in how much value I placed on myself as a person. And I thought that sword swallowing was going to elevate me to this demigod like level in my own mind, or maybe in the minds of other people, which was very delusional. But uh, so I learned sword swallowing, and then I would have these troubles, and then I would have this tension, and I don't know how to hold my body, and then I would just be so devastated and depressed because I laugh about it now, but it was serious to me at the time, man. I thought, like, uh, oh man, I've just, yeah, I was so intent on getting it, and so intent on the fact that, well, if I can do this, I'm going to be one of the few and the proud people in the entire world that can do this thing, which is so silly, if you think about it from an outside perspective. But to me, that was my trip, man. I was on it.
So when you have a show, do you have any kind of either like mental or physical preparation that you're doing ahead of time?
I don't have any. No, I don't have any particular uh rituals that I do before a show. Um, Ideally, I think I want to not be too nervous and also not be too relaxed. Like, I kind of want to have be somewhere between the two extremes. Uh, and so, sometimes I have to calm myself down because I'm so nervous, and I have to breathe and try to be mindful and and calm my nerves. And other times I'm just so tired, and I have the almost a tendency to be more cynical, like if it's been a really long string of doing shows, and then I have to really remind myself, it's like, yeah, I know I'm tired, and I know I just feel like I don't care, but I have to care. Like, this is important. And so then I have to go the other way and try and pump myself up to get to the right level where I need to be to go on stage.
Oh, other than what you already incorporate into your shows, is there anything that you hope to add in the future?
I hope to keep adding things, but I don't know what they are yet. I'm trying to, like, I always have something that I'm working on that may or may not go into the show, but I'm trying to follow the sense of or I'm trying to follow the things that are really interesting to me or that make me feel passionate. like at the moment, I'm having a lot of fun with experimenting with unicycling and also with tightrope walking. And I don't know really how those things will be integrated yet, but it's just they're things that are kind of bringing me a lot of joy as I'm learning more about them and physically practicing them and things like this. I'm really bad at both of them right now, but so and I don't know. They may or may not end up in the show. They may just be things, but that I have done for fun, and I won't regret that either. Um, but yeah, I'm always working on something new. I just don't know what it is yet.
Okay, cool. Now, can you talk a little bit about juggling and I guess like a little bit of the history behind it? Like, has it been around a long time? Is it like an old profession?
Yeah, I think no, I think I know some stuff about this, and but I'm not a scholar at all, so I'm a little nervous to give my own analysis of it because I'm afraid it might be wrong. But I think that juggling, generally speaking, has been around for a long time. I think from what I understand, uh, juggling as we commonly think of it today is like which is more or less exclusively you think of somebody that's throwing objects, usually balls or clubs or rings or something like this. That very specific kind of set of activities. I think that only became the definition of juggling in the 20th century. And kind of before that, as I understand it, I'm like giving my caveat every sentence. I'm sorry, but as I understand it, before the 20th century, and a juggler was kind of a all around term for entertainer or performer, even, and often was associated more with what we would like say the troubadour or even a bard or somebody that might tell stories and tell and sing songs or dance and may also do tricks, might do magic, might be selling snake oil, uh, these kinds of people. And in the I think in the like very late 19th century, maybe early 20th, and I don't know I don't know the dates, but there was a juggler, what we now think of a juggler as Paul Cinquevalli, and he became very famous in Europe for doing like physical stunts with props. He was also an acrobat and a tight wire walker, and he was a crazy person. But and he got very famous in sort of like the vaudeville theater, before TV, and he called what he did juggling. And so that kind of, because of his fame, that kind of became the definition, I think, of this is somebody who works with props and does tricks and stuff. And that was very specific. And then there came along another juggler named Enrico Restelli, which even more defined it. He was also famous kind of on that same level. And then so there were famous jugglers actually back in the early 20th century, and then television came along and vaudeville apparently, as I understand it, that was vaudeville kind of died off, and now jugglers, you get this stereotype of now that a juggler is kind of something that performs either in the circus or at a children's birthday party, and you're probably not going to be famous. This is a stereotype that I deal with all the time. Is sometimes I almost cringe. Like, this is really bad, and I hate this, but I almost cringe sometimes when people ask me what are you doing or what are you here to do at this event, and well, I'm the juggler, and I know what kind of things that makes them think of, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to be associated with that image because I don't really feel like that's my vibe. But which is maybe really bad. It doesn't really matter, but I'm really conceited sometimes, and I feel like I want to, like, I have this need or desire, I think, to be seen a certain way, like probably most people do. Maybe I have it more than some others, so I get upset about stupid things like that. But yeah, yeah, but that's as I understand it, that was kind of the evolution of the definition of what we call juggling.
Okay. And I understand what you're saying because like when my wife first told me about the juggling show that was going to be going on, I'm thinking, oh, okay, juggling. All right, that should be interesting. And then and then I go to it and I'm like, whoa, that is That's not what I expected, but it was awesome.
So yeah, this is my problem. People say exactly what you just said. People say that to me all the time, and I love that people do say that. Um, in one sense, you know, because yeah, I'm kind of well, I don't know. I want to have I, how do I say this? People come up to me all the time after my show, and they say I was not expecting that to be good, but it was. And I'm like, that's such a wonderful compliment, and it is so flattering. But also, I've like, well, I wish I could find a way to describe it so that it would look cool up front, you know, so that you didn't have to, you know, so that more people would come out to begin with and see it. You know, but I don't know. It may just be, uh, yeah, it may just be the symptom of being a juggler in this at this time in history, you know.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah, there's not a whole lot of jugglers out there, I don't think. And so people have this, like you said, a stereotype of what they think a juggler is supposed to be. And then, they see your show and it like completely changes their perceptions of it. And I think it's cool that you do what you do. Um, and can you talk to that effect? Can you talk a little bit about your persona that you have, the Rogue Showman, and how that came about?
The Rogue Showman is completely marketing. I have no idea what that name means. It's just a cool name I came up with one day. At least I thought it was cool. I don't know if it's actually cool. That's for everyone else to decide. But
I think so.
um, well, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of, I suppose it's kind of catchy. People do seem to catch on to it. Um, and yeah, the persona is something I'm constantly working on. Uh, I I think what I'm searching for in my persona, hopefully, is trying to find something genuine. Like uh, I kind of want to be very sincere. I in how I relate to the audience. I guess I've seen a lot of performers and a lot of people growing up who kind of and this is going to sound critical, I suppose, but and I don't mean anyone in particular, but a lot of performers who kind of talk down to the audience, or they kind of almost don't. It's hard to explain, but if you're there, you know what I mean. You know, they almost don't talk to them as if they're real people. It's almost like there's a screen or something, or it's almost like it's Nick Jr. or something, and you're talking to adults as if they're children, and and so and it's really easy to do that as a performer. Like, because oftentimes you're actually literally elevated above the people on a stage, and it's easy to, the energy of that is wonderful, and also I think kind of dangerous, and you can get very cynical, I think, about you being like the person that knows all the tricks or all the secrets, and all these simple yokels out there are they're not part of this esoteric group that I'm part of as performers, which is so stupid. But I've fallen into that. Uh, I think more than I would like to admit, and so I'm always searching for sincerity, I think, and I really want to like look at the audience and see this as real people that are probably smarter than I am, and I, like, I absolutely should not talk down to them, or I should talk up to them. I'm in a sense like I should be there ideally to present them with something that's worthwhile, or that's worth their time, and actually to value their time and attention. Yeah, so that's what I'm searching for in my persona, and what that has to do with the Rogue Showman, I don't think it has anything to do. I don't know. The Rogue Showman is a cool name, hopefully, and I guess what I hope for the Rogue Showman name is that it kind of imparts the more like the vibe, or more like the idea that what I'm doing is maybe a little bit more alternative and edgy than the stereotype of juggling, I guess, is what you, maybe it's that, maybe it's just my attempt to try to steer myself away from maybe the stereotype of a juggler. I don't know.
No, that makes perfect sense, I think.
Sure.
And I think Rogue Showman adds a little bit of a element of mystery in there too, because people have
Sure.
that image of a stereotypical juggler, and then before they go to your show, if they see the name Rogue Showman, they're like, that's what I would expect a juggler to be called.
Yeah, hopefully that's the hopefully that's the reaction. I don't know if it is. I may, it could be that a couple years down the road I completely ditch that name and go with something else, but I have I have no idea. It seems to have stuck for now.
So we're going to start wrapping things up soon here. And Clark, one last question for you. Uh, Throughout the time that you've been performing, is there any one particular show that stands out to you as being really memorable or really special?
It's so hard to choose one because there are I think several that stand out to me. The one that comes to my mind right now is a show I got to do in Iowa last year, and it was the first time I'd really got to perform a theater show at a really beautiful old opera house type venue, and it was a situation where I felt like I fell in love with that venue so much, and it just felt like the perfect spot. It almost like I get weird about this stuff perhaps, but like I am very interested in architecture and the context of places, and it felt like the architecture of that building understood me. That's going to sound like such a stupid thing to say probably, but it really felt like that. And so that was such a beautiful show, and the crowd that came out, it was only about 100 people that came to that show. It was just those, by monetary standards it's not a successful show, but they were so wonderful. And yeah, that was yeah, there's not, I suppose there's nothing really interesting there except that was just it was just such a beautiful experience for me to get to perform there and do my show in that venue.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, you said that was in Iowa, so do you travel all across the country for your shows?
Yeah, I do. Mostly I stay in Michigan, but yeah, I do travel nationwide a little bit, obviously. I like traveling, so I like the opportunity to do that. But, finances and just the fact that, this is such a small time industry that I'm a part of, kind of dictates that I um, keep most of my work closer to home.
Sure, sure. Now, Clark, website is clarklewisjuggling.com.
Right,
And
right.
do you have any social media profiles you'd like to mention?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Clark Lewis, the juggler on Facebook and Instagram. Just recently got TikTok and YouTube as well. So yeah, you can find me all those major places.
All right, very cool. Well, Clark, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, man.
All right. And thanks everyone for listening. If you'd like to learn more about my podcast, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Just search for A Happy Moment, and I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Okay, I think I stopped it. No,
Okay.
oh, wait, wait.